Bay Area Baller back again. I'm going to be talking all things NBA draft, Warriors related, with a special guest. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. What's up, YouTube? Bay Area Baller back again. I'm joined by NBA draft guru, D-Hack, who also happens to be one of my best friends on this planet. What's up, D-Hack? How you doing?
What's up, Bay Area Baller? I'm good. Happy belated Father's Day. Happy belated Father's Day. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited. I still got this euphoric feeling running through my blood. The Golden State Warriors won their fourth one that we've witnessed, D-Hack. And growing up, man, I don't think we could have ever expected this when me and you were hanging out as 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds running around the block, cheering for the Warriors. But it was like, D-Hack, man, it was like the NBA draft was the thing we had to look forward to because the Warriors were always at the bottom of the standings. So I know for years, me and D-Hack always were scouting these NBA drafts. This year, I kind of fell off, but I'm happy that you're still on top of it. That way I could get you on here, hear what you got to say. What prospects are you eyeing? But first, D-Hack, before I forget, see this shirt right here?
The Dubs.
Looks pretty... Yeah, it looks pretty dope, right? I got to shout out my boy Christian and his cousin, who you can find him on IG as Al_Major, hooked me up with this shirt. I thought it was big time. I think it looks dope. So if you want to go cop it, check out Al Major on IG. But D-Hack, thanks for coming on. And I want to hear this year in this NBA draft, I feel like there's not a consensus, like number one guy, number two guy. There might be like 3 or 4 guys who I've seen listed as the top guy on these draft boards. So I wanted to hear from you, how you got your top 10 big board playing out. Why don't we start at 10 and we can work our way to 1? But I want to hear who you got in your top 10.
Definitely. I got you a top 10. Before we get into the top 10, though, I got 2 honorable mentions that didn't make my final top 10 list, but I just got to call them out just in case 5 years from now they become the next big thing that we noted on them and we get our receipts in order. The first one is Tori Eason. I don't know if you know anything about him. He's a small forward, power forward out of LSU, 6'8". He transferred from Cincinnati, so he only played 1 year at LSU, but he's like a high motor athlete. He's going to play lockdown defense, I think, day one in the NBA. He needs to figure out his shooting. He's a little kind of crazy on the defensive end. He's going to get 3 fouls in 3 minutes like Looney did in the playoffs. He's kind of honed that in, but he's got all the skill set that you want in like a 3-and-D, especially on the defensive side.
Say his name one more time for me.
Tori Eason.
Okay.
Tarieason. 1 year at LSU.
Out of LSU.
Yep. And then the other guy, kind of in that 3-and-D mold too, just because that's where the league is going. I like Jeremy Sohan, 6'9", 6'10", small forward, power forward out of Baylor, another freshman, 19 years old, super athletic. He's going to be a two-way player, bring automatic defense day one. But he needs to work on his shooting, which is why I don't have him in my top 10. He's going to be left alone on an island. He's going to get the Draymond treatment where he's going to pretend to go out, but then realize who's shooting. And until he can start hitting down that shot, he's going to be a little bit of a liability. So 2 guys I wanted to note on that are probably maybe going to get drafted in the top 10, but I don't have them in my top 10. So just wanted to call those as my honorable mention.
Yeah, it sounds like those are some defensive studs who maybe have some work to do on the offensive side where, you know what I've heard a lot, and I want to get your opinion about this, is I've heard like we all know shooting is at a premium right now in the NBA. Now, do you feel like shooting is something like when you come into the league, either like you got it or you don't? Or, I mean, obviously players can get better, but like how much of that is developmental or how much of it is if you're a shooter, you're a shooter. If you can't shoot, you're probably not going to grow and be a sniper.
I think if you have good form, I can work with good form because then it's just repetition, understanding what you need to shoot. Like, not everyone needs to take these Steph Curry shots. If you can stand in the corner and hit the three, you can make a good living doing that. I get nervous when I see guys and their form is a little wonky, and you're just like, that's like the Lonzo Ball, like having to kind of replicate how you hold the ball. Like, I get a little concerned about that because it's kind of a starting over. But if you have good form, I can work with that. And like I said, you just need to be able to practice a few shots, like all the time, and you can make a living off of that. So I think it's something you can develop.
PJ Tucker's still standing in the corner somewhere hitting threes. So
Right.
It's like, you're right. Those corner 3-point shooters, man, they're at a premium. Just stand in the corner, space the floor. Okay, I feel you. And go ahead. Get back to your top 10.
All right. Let's start with 10. This is a guy is like in 15 like pick in a lot of mock drafts, but I really like him. His name's Malachi Branham. He's a 6'5" shooting guard out of Ohio State, freshman. He went to St. Vincent St. Mary's, home of LeBron. I really like his game because he's young. He's got a long wingspan. He's got a built body where he's not skinny. He's got the frame, and he uses that to his advantage. He gets to the rim really easily. The highlight tapes I saw, he's shooting a lot of free throws because he's getting to the hoop, he's making contact, and he's drawing fouls. So I like that. Like I mentioned, the length, the size. His shooting's pretty solid, at least what we saw in college. He came off the bench and then became a starter. So his real big knock is that he's a late riser. No one really had him as a first-round draft pick at the beginning of the year. He needs to work on his defense. I think defense is something that with the right coaching in place and a good system, you can develop that. And he needs to be a little bit better playmaker. But I like his size. He's kind of like a Donovan Mitchell, Cabarrus LeVert type player where he's going to be slept on and he's probably going to fall a little bit farther back, but he's going to get buckets, I think, right away and be a valuable rotation and maybe even a starter one day. So that's my number 10, Malachi Branham.
Hey, and real quick, I got NBA Draft pulled up because we know we're both NBA Draft gurus or NBADraft.net fans. That's what we grew up reading, and that was our favorite website. So they got him comped to Chris Middleton, which I feel like kind of fits right along with your kind of Caris LeVert feel.
Yeah. I think he can play on both sides of the ball, but he's got a little work to do. He's 19. But I like him as like number 10. My next guy, number 9, I'm lower on this guy than a lot of folks, and I'll get into that. But I got Keegan Murray, the 6'8" small forward, power forward out of Iowa, 22 years old. He's a good shooter. That's one of his strengths. He's got length for size. He's got an NBA length of body. He's a high motor player. He plays with energy. My whole vibe with him is that he's good, but not great. I think the ceiling's a little bit lower, and that's why I wouldn't have him as a top 5 pick. But top 10, 9, that's perfect for me. My main concern, though, is being 22 years old and kind of lacking that body strength. I just wonder when he's going to get it. He still needs a little bit more time. So my comp for him is Warriors champ Otto Porter Jr. With a little Cam Johnson vibe with the shooting touch. So I think he'll have a good role in the NBA, but I wouldn't consider him my franchise savior. I don't even know if he's going to be your number 3 or 4 option. He might be a better number 5 option in the starting lineup. So I'm a little bit lower, and he's number 9 on my board.
I like that. I like your Otto Porter comparison. I feel like the wings are just at a premium. Like, especially you see, with the Warriors being in the NBA Finals, you need these long, athletic wings, guys you can stick on a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum. So the long wings are just at a premium.
Definitely, and I think they're going to go quick in this draft. Outside of the top 4 kind of players that we'll get into. But I have Keegan Murray a little bit lower. My number 8 guy, we're going to go to the G League Ignite. Dyson Daniels, 6'6", point guard, shooting guard. I really like his IQ. He's one of those guys where I think he'll just be a good teammate his entire life because he's not a me first type player. He plays within the system. He has good defensive size for the guard position, has good passing ability. The question with him is his shooting. I know he's been working on it, so TBD on like if that's going to be holding him back in the future or if it's going to be something he'll be able to develop. And the other thing is just he's not an elite athlete. He's slow paced, which in today's NBA, you can get by being a little bit more slow paced, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to be able to lock down those premium athletes on the wing. I think he's going to have his limitations, at least to start. And my comp for him is an Evan Turner / Ricky Rubio hybrid. And I know like you think it's like, oh, Ricky Rubio, but Rubio was an amazing prospect coming out. It's just he needed to work on shooting, which is kind of the same thing with Dyson, that I feel the comp is there, and there's some kind of overlap in how their game style and play is.
And Rubio's a stud on the defensive end too. Like when you think Ricky Rubio, you think he's a wizard, he's a magician passing the ball, but he's also a damn good defender. Do you see some of that out of Daniels?
Yeah, because he's 6'6", and 6'6" on your point guard is going to cause problems. It's just going to be those quick first step elite athletes that I think you're going to have to move him to the shooting guard position a little bit.
Like a jaw. So you might not want him on like a jaw.
Exactly. Jaw's going to expose him, but on Desmond Bane, he'll hold his own. So that's where it's like, depending on who is his backcourt mate, like it really, he can get exposed or he can be in a perfect fit. So it all matters with your roles where you get drafted. We could talk about Wiggins, and being in the right situation makes a major difference, but I like what I see on Daniel's tape. I was high on him before he started moving up into like this 4 through 8 kind of draft selection area. We're going to go 2 wings for 7 and 6. Number 7, I got AJ Griffin, the 6'6" shooting guard, small forward out of Duke. Not even 19 years old.
I like that guy. He can shoot it, right? Yeah. I remember when I was watching Duke in the tourney, I like that guy Griffin. I was like, oh, he's got a good-looking, smooth jumper. But go ahead, elaborate.
That's it. Elite shooting. He can shoot. NBA pedigree. You're going to hear this in a lot of my players that I'm talking about. I just like guys that are sons of former players just because they're around the game. They understand the business, and they're going to have someone in their corner really helping them out. His dad is an assistant coach, I believe, on the Toronto Raptors right now. So he's been around the game his entire life. And he's also one of these guys that when you watch these pro day workouts, there's guys that wear shirts and there's guys that don't wear shirts. And the guys who don't wear shirts are not wearing shirts because they're showing off their body and how physically defined they are and how different they look than some of the other prospects like a Keegan Murray. So he's one of those guys where you look at his body just from a physical standpoint, you're like, that's an NBA player. And the fact that he's only 19 years old, I really like him. The only reason I don't have him higher is he's gone through a lot of injuries, even dating back to high school. But there's concerns. Is that going to be a long-term problem or not? And I also think that he's been more in like an isolation style. And if he's in the right system where he's running off screens like Klay Thompson and hitting threes, he can be really valuable. My comp for him is a little bit of an interesting one, but I see a little J.R. Smith in his game where he can go for 30 in some games, but he could also be really quiet and maybe get 8 or 9 and play 30 minutes. So I really like AJ Griffin, but there are some concerns, just injuries and the system that I don't have him as high as maybe some other folks. But 7, if you're top 7, like that's still a really good situation to be in.
No doubt. And just for the record, when I work out in front of NBA scouts, I'm a shirt on kind of guy. No one wants to see my physique. But
right.
Go ahead. Let me know. What are we on? 6? Next guy's number 6? Yeah.
Number 6 is also a shirt off prospect, and that's Benedict Mathurin, the Pac-12 Player of the Year, 6'6" shooting guard, small forward out of Arizona, Canadian player, size and strength.
Team Canada, D-Hack.
Canada.
I got a thing for Team Canada because, I got to put in a future prop bet on some Olympics year coming up because that Team Canada is loaded. That we could save that for another show and go down that list. But just to mention a few, Andrew Wiggins, Jamal Murray, my boy Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell. that point guard RJ Barrett. Anyway, let's get back to the draft. But I'm big on Canada basketball.
Oh yeah. He's been in the Canadian like under 18 team, so like he's going to be playing in the Olympics pretty soon, and he'll probably be a starter just because he is, in my head, the prototypical 3-and-D. I like his size. I think right now he's an easy team fit. Whoever's drafting him is going to get an immediate impact player just because of the ability to play on both sides of the ball. He's got a really good motor. You're not going to ask him to have to play harder. He's going to play hard. And I like his shooting stuff. I think he's got good form. Obviously, something that, if you want to be elite and be like one of these top echelon players, he's got to develop that a little bit more. But I like what I see. What his weaknesses are is that he needs to be a better playmaker, passer. And then I don't want to see as much dribbling out of him because he gets a little turnover prone. So in the right situation where he's just a 3-and-D guy, not asked to be the playmaker, he can be really a strong asset. And so I see like a little Jaylen Brown in his game where physically you like what you see on tape, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to be taking them to the next step. So that's why I got him at 6. I think he's a stud. I would have him higher, but the other 5, I'm just sold on them a little bit more. But he's my favorite to be, going to the right system and being a stud in the next 2 or 3 years. And he'll be playing in Canada for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eye out for him. I'm trying to get the pronunciation right. Benedict Mathurin.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole pronunciation, but we'll start hearing his name more and more on draft day because he's going to go, I would say, top 8 for sure. So that's my
top
6
5
through 10.
Yeah.
So now we're in the top 5. You might not like this. I'm lower on this guy than others, but at number 5, I got Chet Holmgren, the 7-footer power forward out of Gonzaga, 20 years old. And I will say Chet is it's top 5. It's like we're talking about A- versus A's. It's hard to argue these. But for me, I think his defense and the blocks, he'll be great. He's going to be a great help side defense. He's going to cover up a lot of mistakes if guards getting beat off, and he'll kind of be that safety valve. I like his athleticism for 7 foot. He can move well. He can get up and down the court. And his shooting is something that I think will be a premium for him. Just no one's going to block his shots, and you can't teach 7 foot height, at the end of the day. My main concerns why I have him at number 5 and not 1, 2, or 3 like some other big boards is his frame scares me. I think both of us may weigh more than him at this moment in time, and we're definitely a foot shorter than him. And why that's such a big thing for me is that I feel like he's going to be wing dependent on the offensive side, where he's not going to feel comfortable playing within 10 feet of the hoop because he's going to get bullied. He'll be more comfortable spreading out the offense. Right system that may work, but I see him getting a little bit too comfy sitting on that wing side. And the reason why I go in on that is when you watch the Duke Gonzaga tape from early in the year, that's probably the best front court he had to match up with physically. You have Paolo, Mark Williams, who's going to be a first-round pick. But what stuck out to me is Theo John, Marquette guy who did 4 years, who's 6'8", maybe 260, was bullying him, boxing him out into the baseline, dipping him up and under, bad falls by Chet. So I just get concerned that he's going to get bullied for a few years until he can build out his frame. And he hasn't been able to play in a competition level consistently where he's going against grown men. He played on a high school basketball team that had NBA players on it. He was playing in the WCC, which doesn't have NBA players in the post that he's matching up with. And he had Drew Timme being his big man. He thrives at the 4 position. So I just see another Kristaps Porzingis, and I get frustrated with Porzingis because I'm like, you're 7'1". Go to the hoop. Don't shoot those threes. Don't pick and pop. So that's why I have that 5. I think there's some guys ahead of him that are going to be more valuable in the long run and have more roles and more minutes when it comes down to the last 6 minutes of the game that you're going to need him out there a little bit more than, say, Chet. So that's why I have him at 5. I know it might not be popular, but I do see some limitations with that frame that kind of scare me personally.
And I know what you mean because his frame it might not put on weight. Some guys don't. You know, you look at
Right.
Bull's been in the league 3 years. He looks the same as when he was at Oregon. Just some guys' frames just don't put on weight, or it doesn't show at least. So it's something to keep an eye on. What I will say with Chet, I remember when he bursted on the scene, crossing up Steph Curry,
Yep.
right? So ever since then, I've kind of had my eye on him. I might be a little bit higher on Chet than you are, but you've spent more time evaluating these guys than I have. Just the size and with the shooting touch is pretty tantalizing to me. I might have him ahead of a guy or two that you have him behind, but please continue.
Yeah. So the guys I have ahead of him, Mr. Mystery Man of this draft, Shayden Sharp, who was my number 4 prospect, the 6'6" shooting guard who went to Kentucky, maybe never practiced or played, but was in his class before he reclassified, the number 1 high school prospect. I honestly wasn't high on him, and I actually had him lower, but the more I evaluated him and I saw some of like just the workout footage, I really like his shooting. He can shoot at all levels. He's got Steph Curry type range. And we talk about shooting is a premium. And if he can shoot, I like that. The athleticism is there too. He can finish above the rim. He can work off ball. Obviously, we haven't seen him work off ball a lot just because he hasn't had that much game tape. But I like what I see in the athleticism and his frame. That's what impressed me the most. He's a guy that I can see getting a little bit bigger, but he probably weighs more than Chet Holmgren right now for a 6'6" player. And just the weaknesses is the lack of game tape, the lack of experience, and just seeing that game tape to know, is he a sure hit prospect? But when I watch him, I'm like, that's Bradley Beal 2.0. And if I could get Bradley Beal at the number 4 pick, I would totally take that. No questions. But to be seen, he could totally bust. But from what I'm seeing, I would risk it, just knowing that ball handlers and shooting and size on the wing are premium items that the NBA needs. So I would risk it if I had a top 5 pick on him.
It does sound boom or bust, D-Hack. And if you're a GM making that pick, you know, inside the top 3 or 4, I don't know. If it doesn't hit, your job's going to be on the line, D-Hack.
For sure. And that's why he could fall, because if you're a GM and trying to save your job, you're not going to take that. But it could be one of these things you look back and it was like, oh, we just got all duped because he didn't show any of this footage, but he's still a solid player. I'm just kind of sold on the shooting. That's just something I'm like, he's going to be able to do that. It's not that he needs to work on it more. It's just we need to see it in actual gameplay. So that's the big thing, is just, can it go to the next level? I'm sure he's going to have growing pains. And I imagine like he'll have a Jalen Green type season where it's going to be a struggle for like 45, 50 games. But the last 30 games, you might be like, oh, he was getting 18 points a game on not a great team, depending where he gets drafted. So I would take that risk, just on what I've just kind of seen. But he's a big mystery. My next one, number 3, Paolo Banchero, the 6'10", power forward, center out of Duke, almost 20 years old. I like his size. I like his ball skill. I like his scoring ability. You'll hear this, the pedigree. His mom got drafted by the WNBA. His dad was a basketball player in college. He's been around the game his entire life. His concerns are just defense and efficiency. When you're a high volume shooter, that's the concern, is like, okay, when you only get 10 shots, how are you going to produce in those 10 shots? But I like his game. I think in the right situation, he could be your number 1 or number 2 option. And I kind of see like a light athletic version of Blake Griffin, someone that could play small ball 5 now, but it could also be a 4 if he has a rim protector behind him like he did at Duke. Been hearing comps to like Julius Randle, Chris Webber-esque. I just think that size and that skill is worth a top 3 pick.
What do you think about his jumper? Because I know at Duke, you know, when I was watching, he was shooting some 3 balls. And, I mean, it looked pretty good to my eye. But what do you think about his jump shot? Is that something that, like, is he going to be a shooter at the next level?
I think eventually he'll be more of a knockdown shooter, but what I'm more sold on is the fact that when it gets tough in a game and the 3-point ball is not dropping, you need a guy that can get to the hoop. that can slow the game down. And I was just watching too many games where Duke was like, we don't know what to do. AJ Griffin's not hitting his shot. Mark Williams isn't getting into the post. And Paolo would just take over. And he would just get to the hoop, get a layup with his right hand, or get fouled and go to the line.
Off the dribble.
So I see a lot off the dribble.
At 6'10", he's got some wiggle. He's got some handle. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think his shot is respectable enough that he's good enough that you need to close out hard, but he can get to the lane. And he's long. He's 6'10", where he doesn't need a lot. And just where this NBA game is going, if he's playing center for closeout lineups, I would take a guy that can be a threat to take my center off the dribble. He was going at Chet, and Chet was able to size him up just because of his length, but he was getting bodied. And I like, a 6'10" big body guy that can initiate the offense when necessary and get a bucket. So we're down to the top two. I'm higher on this guy, and I almost put him as number one.
Wow.
But Jaden Ivy, the 6'4" point guard, shooting guard out of Purdue, 20 years old, is my number two prospect. And this dude, an elite athlete. He gets the ball, and he was running the fast break by himself, finishing. Russell Westbrook-esque back in OKC, where the rebound, they're already initiating the offense in transition. I love elite athletes. He can shoot and pass. He's got the pedigree. His mom played in the WNBA. She coaches the women's college team at Notre Dame. And this is specifically for your fans. His dad played for the 49ers as a wide receiver in 2006. So mom is a hooper. Dad is a football player. 6'4". He's the team no shirt workouts. I just think he's a freak athlete. What I want more from him is, if you're a freak athlete, I need that elite defense, because he can lock up a John Morant because he can stay in front. But I haven't seen that because I don't think he's been tested too hard, especially at the collegiate level. And the other thing that concerns me, and I don't know if it's just college ball or if it's going to be a problem, is he's very right-hand dominant. And we saw, if you're able to figure out one side and shut them down, it does limit you. I just don't know if he just never had to really go to his left because he was so elite with his right that why go the other way when you can go with a stronger hand and beat whoever you need to. So that's the one thing that I'm a little concerned about, but I think that's something you could work through. And so my comp for him is a D Rose light or a more effective Oladipo. He's going to be in a dunk contest probably. He's got the body. I really like him, and just guards are at a premium. I know it's a guard-heavy league, but he's definitely the number one guard that I would say is in this draft class by like a longer leap than maybe the bigs are.
So Jaden Ivy, he's a guy who I've watched more live basketball, more college basketball than most of these prospects on. And that's because I had Purdue winning my bracket, D-Hack.
Yep.
I had Purdue going a long ways, right? And I knew about Ivy, but it was more so about the two bigs that Purdue had. I'm blanking on their names, but the 7-foot light skin Edey. I'm a big Zach Edey guy. I love me some Edey.
Williams.
And Travion Williams, and they got Jaden Ivy, who you just talked about. So I thought Purdue was going to make this deep run. I was watching them, and they kind of let me down. I mean, they won. I want to say they made it to like the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or something like that. But I was watching them, and Jaden Ivy, dude, he was dunking on dudes. Like you said, that dude's an athletic freak.
Yeah, so, I have him number 2. I really like him. If the Kings get him at 4, like that backcourt with De'Aaron Fox and him, that's going to be the most athletic backcourt I think around. So I really like Jaden Ivy. I think he's got the whole package. But that leaves me to my number 1 prospect, Jabari Smith, 6'10", small forward, power forward out of Auburn, 19 years old, shooting, elite shooting. He's one of these guys like Clay and Steph, when he's open and he's taking a 3, it's a surprise if it doesn't go in because that's how good of a shooter he is. And he's so tall that it's very difficult for anyone to get a hand up in his face. I like the size, 6'10". He's kind of filled out. I think he's in 220 range. Hard worker, big motor, NBA pedigree. His dad played in the NBA for a few years. His weakness is really like he is not a playmaker. You're not going to ask him to go off the dribble like Kevin Durant and get a bucket pull-up. He's limited there in his dribbling. But I think in the right system, if he has a point guard that can help feed him and take the ball handling and playmaking duties off of him, he will thrive and succeed. So my comp that I have for him is Chris Bosh. Someone that, like, as a number one, you're kind of like, is that team really good? But as your number 2 or 3, he's an elite, superstar.
You're a championship caliber team if this guy's your number 2 or number 3 option.
But he's not going to be a number 1, which is why I think people are concerned taking him number 1, because you want your number 1 to be a franchise changer. I think he can change the culture, but he needs some pieces around him and a system around for him to thrive as being a number 2 or a really superstar level number 3. And I forgot to mention this. Outside of the family pedigree of his dad, he is cousins to former number 1 overall pick Kwame Brown. So I don't know how much value you're going to put in that, but I thought it was interesting as he's being considered as a number 1 pick.
Stock down.
And there's
Stock
bloodlines.
down.
Yeah. But he has everything that Kwame didn't have: the shooting, the athleticism, the motor.
Can he catch a ball? Because Kwame Brown's hands were awful. Kwame Brown had terrible hands. And that's where,
The problem with Jabari is that he didn't play with the best guards at Auburn. So the fact that he produced without having elite guards in his backcourt, I think shows that, like, he can succeed. It's just that he's not going to be able to take over a game by himself. He needs someone that's going to kick it out to him, and he'll thrive as a catch and shoot. I know the Rashard Lewis comps get thrown out there, but I see more of a Chris Bosh because I think he's still got potential to grow a little bit and could be a small ball 4 or 5, a small ball 5 specifically, depending on the matchups, because he rebounds. He can switch on the defensive side. So I really like that. And I think, he's a prospect you can't miss on.
From everything you described, Chris Bosh seemed like a great comp, because it's like we remember Bosh in Toronto. Like, yeah, he was getting those Toronto teams to the playoffs, but were they championship caliber teams? No. But you link up with Bron and D Wade, and they're winning titles. Right.
So that's what I see as a perfect scenario for him, is to be the number 2 or number 3, and not have a role where it's like you need to be the playmaker. You're a complementary piece that is of high value for your shooting, your rebounding, your defense, because he can be elite at that. But to take over a game single-handedly, I don't think he's going to be able to do that.
Hey, thank you for taking us through your top 10. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for these prospects, see where they end up, see how right D-Hack was. I got the receipts. We got the receipts. But this next topic, D-Hack, what players should the Warriors target with their late first-round pick? I believe it's pick 28 that the Warriors have. So I'm wondering, who are you eyeing in that late first round? And more so, D-Hack, like what position or like what are you looking for? If you're Bob Myers, what do you think you want to add? We're going to get to the players, but just kind of in general, what do you think the Warriors should be looking to add in the draft?
Yeah, so first off, I know people are saying, they'll probably trade out this to save money maybe. I think this is the perfect pick to actually take a player and keep them, because you have a player under control for potentially 4 years at a low cost rate. I think Jordan Poole is on his 4th year, and he's going to be making $3.5–4 million. That's what we wanted. We want a rotational player that can contribute in year 2, 3, and 4 on a contract that's going to allow us to eat the cost on all these max guys that hopefully we're going to pay for and keep around. So that's what I'm really looking for, is a player that can be a rotational player in a couple of years. Not this year, maybe year 2 he gets more minutes, but year 3 and 4, I need you to actually take up 15, 20 minutes a game. But they're in a perfect position where let's see what happens in this draft class. There might be a guy at the end of my top 10 that could fall all the way, because it's such a crapshoot this year, and there's not a lot of like for sure things. But if you're looking for anything, it's 3 and D wings. You saw on my big board. 3-and-D is a priority. But I also am very aware that Looney may not be around after this season just because he's due
Don't
for a
say
pay
that,
raise.
D-Hack. Don't say that. I'm a big Looney guy.
I love Looney. But you take the Looney model. Looney was an end of first round pick that slipped due to some concerns about, injuries along those lines, but he became a valuable rotation player. So if we can get another big that can be potentially a spot starter or off the bench as like a valuable contributor on the defensive side and rebounding, I would be open to that. But 3-and-D is definitely something that I think is a premium. So I got 5 guys, and who knows if they're going to be there. But they cover along the line of the 3-and-D and big man. The first guy I'm going to throw out there, I don't know if you know anything about him, is Marjan Beauchamp, 6'7", shooting guard, small forward, plays for the G League Ignite. He's a physical wing. He's going to play rock solid defense right away. Steals is kind of his calling card, but he rebounds and he can finish in transition because he's got a high motor. He reminds me of like a young Iguodala, and just the fact that he gets these steals that you're like, how did he get that? Because he understands how to play with position and he has active hands. He
and
really
that's
needs
at
to
an
work.
early age. If you're showing that off at whatever, I'm imagining this guy's 19 or 20. If you're showing that off that early stage of development, that's huge.
Yeah. What he needs to work on though is the shooting, the playmaking if he wants to be like a starting level guard, but I see him being a rotational wing guy year 2, potentially even getting run year 1. And he just has a very interesting story. He was on 4 high school teams. He was on the high school teams playing underneath Brandon Roy. He was a freshman when Michael Porter Jr. was a senior, and they went 30 or 29-0. So he's been around a lot of good high school teams. But he went to junior college for a bit. He was training actually out in San Francisco for 6 months, like at the beginning of COVID, because he had some eligibility issues. He did about a year at a junior college, and he tore it up at this small junior college in Washington. I think he had a game where he had 50 points and 11 rebounds. I think he averaged in 10 games like 30 points and 10 rebounds. So he's just had a weird journey, but I really like the potential for adding him at the end of the first round. But he might go in the 20s, so he may not be there. But I really like him. That would be my number 1 priority if he was on the board as a 3-and-D.
Okay, Beauchamp. All right, I'm going to keep my eye out for that guy.
Okay. Another name that falls in the Looney category of a guy that maybe would have been higher if he didn't have any issues his freshman year is Pat Baldwin Jr., 6'10", small forward, power forward out of University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Not Madison, Milwaukee. He's got size, like I said, 6'10", scoring ability, his shooting, and his big thing is upside. He was a top 5 prospect in his high school class. I think he's the youngest player to ever get an offer from Duke, Coach K style, his sophomore year. His real issue is he had a terrible freshman year of basketball. He went to go play for his dad at UW-Milwaukee. His dad got let go halfway through the year. I think there were some injuries with him, and he just did not play well. And there was a lot of questions about his motor. Is he a high-energy player? Are you going to get the most out of him? He's a little flat-footed. Defense is probably going to be an issue. And he was doing this against low-level competition. So you get concerned when you're like, if you're supposed to be the guy, but you can't even dominate mid-level conferences, is that going to actually make you feel better about them in the NBA? But he's the upside where I could totally see him actually being a really good prospect and could potentially actually add value year 1 with his shooting, but it would very much be in a role of stand in the corner. You're going to go against a 4 on defense. Just don't jump. He's going to be on a short leash if he were drafted by the Warriors, but I like the potential just for the shooting, the size, and the potential upside if he does figure it all out.
Yeah, and you know what? I pulled up his NBA Draft.net profile, and they got his jump shot rated as a 9. You know how they rate the player's skills on a scale of 1 to 10? They say Patrick Baldwin's jumper is a 9. And then, but they also got like his game logs here in his statistics. Okay, so it's only 11 games, which is a
It's
small
not good.
sample size. Yeah,
He
and
would
he
have been
shot
better
26.
to not
He
play.
shot 27% from 3. So it's like they're saying his best asset is the jumper, but then again, 11 games is a small sample size. But it sounds like you're convinced that he is a shooter. And anytime, you're 6'10, 6'11 with shooting potential, I mean, it sounds like it's worth the risk at the late first round.
A year ago, he was lottery pick for sure. Potentially a top 5 guy. He just had a terrible freshman year. Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
So like, why not stay in the draft though? Like, who's advising him? Like, if you had a terrible year, it's almost like go back to school, prove yourself, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I think the one thing that's working for him is that he's a USA basketball player. He's been in the USA basketball system. So NBA scouts have probably seen footage of him at lower levels and know what he is. And you could totally write off this year as like, it was a bad year. And that's the issue is if he didn't have this year, if he didn't shoot as terrible as he shot, he would be a lot higher. But I think he could be a prospect where it's like fool's gold. He dropped. He just needs to be in a system where he's just sitting in the corner shooting threes. If you watch his pro day workouts, the jumper is smooth and silky. I just don't think he's the number one guy that maybe he thought he was. And he went into a team where he was supposed to be the guy, and it just didn't work out. Like I said, he was playing for his dad. His dad got fired halfway through. He had some injuries. It wasn't good. He would have been better off not playing at all. And he'd probably be higher up in our draft boards. But at 28th, I would take that risk just because I think you're going to get the shooting, and he could hit, and it could be a great prospect.
I like that. Let me hear who else you got.
Okay, my favorite potential Looney replacement is Jalen Williams, 6'10", power forward center out of Arkansas. Same high school class as Moses Moody. They played a year together. I like his game because I totally see him being the perfect fit for the Warriors. He rebounds. He sets screens. He has good size. Defensive instincts are there where he'll get some blocks. But this is what I really like about his game. He draws charges. I think he drew 56 charges this past year. Some high number that is crazy for a big man to actually have that as a stat on their draft profiles. I mean, he's only 19 years old. So he's still got room to develop. And I think he's a little bit of a sneaky athlete. He can shoot a bit. I don't think in a system like the Warriors, they will ask him to shoot. But he has the range to step out a bit if asked to. I just don't think that's going to be a role that we're going to look for him. So I got
his stats. He shot 73% from the free throw line. And, the free throw line, it shows you kind of what benchmark a player is at in terms of their jump shot. So shooting 73%, very respectable. So the jumper might be something that continues to develop.
Yeah, definitely. He could potentially be a stretch 5. He's also a guy that I could totally see being around in the second round when the Warriors are picking again. So I don't know where he's going to go, but I really like him, and I feel like he's the type of Warriors player that would just fit really well in the system. And I think we all know, like, it'd be nice to have another big just for a security blanket, especially if we go on another playoff run. And I like him. He's got good size. He plays a little bit underneath the rim like a Looney, but he's sneaky. He plays good defense. He's switchable. He'll get blocks. He'll rebound. I think he'd be a good fit. So he's my favorite to end up on a Warriors roster, whether it be in the first round or second round.
You know what? And I heard, it's funny. I heard this guy talk recently, kind of like they asked him, who do you model your game after? And one of the players he mentioned was Al Horford. Do you see some of that? Could you see him kind of developing it into that kind of player?
Definitely. I think Al Horford's a good comp, actually. I think, though, Williams has a little bit more of a competitive mindset. He's willing to risk his body on the line. And he's a sophomore, but he had big moments in both tournaments, his freshman year and sophomore year. And I really like that he was able to develop from being a 4 points, 4 rebound guy his freshman year to a 10 and 10 guy. So I think he's still growing. He's only 19. So I think he would be a good guy to have on a $4 million contract year 4. He could probably start at the center position. He's not going to close out games, but I would rather have another big that's willing to rebound, willing to set screens, willing to take a charge, and be competitive on the defensive side.
I like that. Yeah, because I do feel like I'm with you. I think the Warriors also need another big. So I'm glad that you're also kind of leaning that way. You got any other names that the Warriors should be eyeing, or is that?
I got 2 guys, and I don't know if I would take a first-round pick on them. Who knows, though? One of them is an international guy, Gabriel Procida. I don't know how to say his name. He's a 6'7" shooting guard out of Italy. This guy is a sniper. I think in the A-League, he was a 38% three-point shooter, but he's actually a very good athlete. And I know everyone says, oh, he's athletic, but this guy was throwing dunks off the break windmill style. He's a sneaky good athlete, kind of like Pat Condon is, where you don't think he's going to actually be a threat off the bounce, but he is. He'd be great in transition. He's got a high motor. Every time he misses a shot. You've piqued
my interest because anytime you mention, a sniper, athletic, and European, my ears get perked up. So I already like this guy.
He hustles too. He gets rebounds, a lot of offensive rebounds, and he's the type of guy that will finish an offensive rebound with a dunk, which I like. His concerns is that he's not a good passer. He's not a good dribbler. He's not a playmaker. But in a role where he's coming off screens and running around and hustling on the defensive side and in transition, you can make money on the Warrior system doing that. A good
Say his
replacement
name one more time. I'm just trying to find him on NBA Draft.
He might not even be up there, to be totally honest. It's Gabriel Procida, Procida. And I could be butchering that. But he seems like the type of guy that could replace a Damian Lee, someone that is more of a sniper and running around the screens and tiring out the defense. So I like him as a potential sleeper, as a guy that no one's probably talking about, but could fit really well in the Warriors system.
Hey, nobody's talking about him. I don't see him here on NBA Draft, but hey, I trust D-Hack, the guru. So you got one last guy. You know what? I got a guy, D-Hack. I got a guy.
Yeah, you do your guy.
I got a guy. All right. He's a talking foreign players. I got a foreigner out of Serbia. All right. Apparently, I really like these Serbian players, but I don't want to botch the pronunciation. Nikola Jovic. All right. Yep. This guy, he's 6'10", and D-Hack, from the footage I saw, the guy can shoot the rock. He's lengthy. I just like the guy. A player who I liked growing up was Hedo Turkoglu, and this guy Jokic is giving me Turkoglu vibes. He can pass it. Maybe the lateral quickness might not be there, but you're talking about a 6'10" guy that can shoot the rock. He's got some handle. He can dish it. I mean, we know some of these Serbian players are just wizards passing the ball when we're talking about like Nikola Jokic. This guy practically has the same name, Nikola Jovic. I'm a big fan of this guy. I think if he slips to this late first-round pick, the Warriors would be crazy not to take this guy. The projections I've seen on him got him in like the 20s, maybe in the early 20s. But if a guy slips, hey, maybe his camp comes out and the Warriors say, hey, dude, we really want you. His camp will come out and start telling teams, you know what, we don't want to play for you. We might go back to Serbia. Do some of that shit. That way so the Warriors can draft him. Because I think this guy's a stud. I mean, have you seen him at all?
I've seen a little bit. I know he's tall and his calling card is shooting. I think I saw that he's like technically like labeled himself as a shooting guard at like 6'10" or 6'11". My concern with him is, though, yes, that's a big mismatch, but I think he's going to get exposed on the defensive side. So I see him more being like a stretch big just because he'd be able to match up better and maybe fill out his body. I think he's solid. I think he's going to go, like you said, in the 20s, just because that size of shooting is valued. But if he's there at 30, I could totally see him being a replacement for Nemna, or like a Jonas Jerebko type, corner sniper. But I don't think he envisions himself as a big. He envisions himself as a once-in-a-lifetime prospect that's a shooting guard. Very Poku-esque like for the Thunder, where you're like, that's crazy because he's big and he can shoot. But there's going to, I think, be limitations on the defensive side where he's going to have to match up against shooting guards if that's what he wants to do. So I think for him, that's my thing, is like, are you willing to buy in and change what you think your game is to be more of a role player in a position that is better suited to the NBA versus what he's doing in Serbia right now?
I know what you mean. And I feel like you can play the cross matchup game. Maybe offensively, you play him at the 2 or the 3, but then defensively you have him guard the 4, let's say.
Right.
But and I'm not saying I've done extensive research on Nikola Jovic because I haven't. I'm not going to front like that. But the little I've seen of him, it was pretty intriguing. And at the late first round, I'd be salivating if that guy was still available. But I think you still got one more guy, D-Hack.
Yeah, one more. He might be a second-round pick. Josh Minott, 6'8" power forward from Memphis. He reminds me of a taller Derrick Jones. His strength is he is high energy, defense, transition. I see him being a second-team player, filling the lane, playing good defense, getting steals, getting blocks, being in the dunker spot, pick and rolling, and getting to the rim. His big weakness, though, is that outside of the dunker spot and getting to the rim on a dunk, he's a liability. He's very raw. His shooting reminds me of in 2K, where you're like, it looks good, but you hold the trigger way too long and it just hits the side of the backboard or just hits the rim hard. He's got a lot to do in his shooting, as well as his ball handling. So he's very raw, but I can see him in a system like the Warriors having a role kind of like Jordan Bell used to have, where it's like you just need to set screens, roll, be in the dunker spot, catch lobs, and play hard defense, and you can get minutes. But as like a complete prospect, he's got a lot to develop. So I actually see him more as like a second-round pick, but could totally see him getting swooped up in the end of the first because the defense and the size is very interesting. He's still very young. But a name I want to throw out there is a guy I could see fitting in the Warrior system. So Josh Minott, 6'8", out of Memphis. So that's my guy.
I mean,
Those
I
are my
love
5
it.
guys.
In the second, no, I thought they were great. And I'm excited to see if the Warriors take one of these guys. But in the second round, you're right. You're looking for players that can contribute maybe in just small facets, almost like, Gary Payton's sick, but Gary Payton would come in at the end of the quarter, just for a defensive possession. It sounds like maybe this guy could start out in a role like that, and if he develops, then that role can expand.
Oh, he'll be a solid defender because he's long, lanky. He's willing to take risks, and he's very much a Draymond. Like when he gets the board, he's looking to run. Granted, he might run too fast and throw it out of bounds because he runs with his head cut off, but he brings energy. And when I was watching him, I was like, he could take Gary Payton's role, but he can't shoot. But he can play on-ball defense the entire court length. You can have him on a smaller guy. He could play the 1 through 4, but I think his best role would be a small ball 5 on a second-team unit.
No doubt. Hey, D-Hack, I'm pulling up the Warriors roster right here because we're gonna end it kind of predicting who's gonna be staying on the team. Let's see. Let me get the banner up here. That way I don't misword it. But this is the Warriors roster speculation. What players would you say goodbye to? And are there any potential vet minimum free agents that you would look to add to the roster. And I pulled up the Warriors roster just so we can kind of run down and hear your thoughts. And so who do you think has played their last game as a Warrior?
I hope he hasn't, but I can see Looney has played his last game, and it's simply due to getting the bag. He's making $5 million a year right now.
Hell no.
And the contract.
Looney ain't going nowhere, man. I'm a Looney stan. You can't tell me Looney's going somewhere.
I think there's a few teams that could throw the bag at him. The Kings being one, Mike Brown being like, I'm just going to take a guy that fits my system. I could see Portland pulling another Festus Ezeli and trying to steal.
Hell no.
Have the cap space to do it. I could see the Spurs doing the same thing. Pop being that type of guy to know, like, hey, it worked for Curry.
Okay, D-Hack, hold on. I got to cut you off, though. Because, okay, let's say teams want to pay Looney, right? Now, the Warriors have his bird rights. Correct me if I'm wrong. We can go further over to the salary cap to re-sign him and bring him back. Is it going to cost Joe Lacob a shit ton of money? Yes, but correct me if I'm wrong. We can bring him back.
We can definitely bring him back. I just think his pay is going to go from $5 million to $10 million a year, and you're paying James Wiseman $10 million this year, and the next season you're paying him $12 million. So it's just a lot of money in the center position when I don't think, and you see it, centers don't always close out our lineups. I think Draymond's still our best center at the end of the day. I love Looney. I want to keep him. It's just a lot of money in the center position. And I think some teams are going to make the contract a little bit too rich. Just because the Kings have money, Portland has money, the Spurs have money. And I see Looney being a perfect fit in those kind of structures and teams that I would not be surprised if they throw the bag. I hope we keep them, but 20
I hear
plus
what you're
million
saying, D-Hack.
Wiseman
Don't get me
and Looney
wrong.
is a lot.
I hear what you're saying. I don't give a shit. Joe Lacob, you got to whip out the checkbook and pay the man. Brian Windhorst, yes, these are checkbook wins. All right. And Lacob, I know you're paying a shit ton of luxury tax, but we're winning titles. All right. Now is not the time to roll back spending. So I'm pushing the halt button there. And Joe, unless someone's offering Kevon Looney 15 or 20 mil a year, and that gets multiplied when you're in the luxury tax, we know that gets multiplied 4, 5, 6 times over. We can't spend $100 million on Kevon Looney, but you can't give this guy up either. I am not sure. I actually don't think we win the championship if we don't have Kevon Looney on that team last year.
Oh, I agree. I think he's an integral part. It's just, you look at the contract, Poole is due for the money, Wiggins is due for money, and then that's what I'm saying is you got guys like Wiseman that haven't played, but they're making more money than 6 players combined on the Warriors this year. Gary Payton was making $2 million. Lee was making $2 million. Looney is making $5 million. Otto Porter was making $2 million. Those 4 combined were making less than James Wiseman. So it's just one of those things where I think, yeah, pull out the checkbook. I hope you can. It's just when I look at the numbers, I'm like, that's a lot of money that I could see someone making it a little too rich for us to bring back Looney, just because it's a business strategy not only to hurt the Warriors versus adding Looney, because the teams realize how valuable he is. So that's why I say a team like Portland that has the cap space would be like, let's throw $15 million at Looney and see if the Warriors really want to pay for it. Because if it's a win-win, they're going to be in the luxury tax and they're going to have to make harder decisions. Or we're going to get this guy and it's going to take an integral piece out of their system away from them that makes it a little bit more level playing field. And so that's where I just see the realities coming through. I hope Looney stays, but he deserves a bag at the end of the day. And I don't know what's going on in the front office.
Okay, and we're talking, we're talking money wise, and I want to throw something at you that actually I read earlier today, and apparently it was reported by Ramona Shelburne that the Sacramento Kings are willing to give up the 4th pick of the draft for Jordan Poole. Now, that would save a lot of money, right? Because we know Poole's expecting the bag. We're talking about getting the bag. Is that something you would entertain, or do you think, hey, if Lacob wants to pay Jordan Poole $25 million a year, and that's going to be amplified by the luxury tax, is this something you would consider? Would you do it? We're talking the Sacramento Kings offering pick 4 for Jordan Poole. D-Hack, put on your GM big boy shoes. You're on the clock. What are you doing?
So this is where I get concerned as a Warriors fan. I've heard that Mike Dunleavy and Bob Myers love Keegan Murray. And I don't know if I would do that for Keegan Murray. So I would do that if we were getting a Jaden Ivy, if we were getting a Paolo, if we were getting one of those upper echelon guys on my board. But I would be a little lacklusterly disappointed if we traded Poole and we got Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray would probably fit perfectly in a Warriors type system right away. I would just feel a little like we didn't get what we thought we should have get. So that is the one thing that I'm keeping in my head is like, oh, is this to get Keegan Murray? Because I don't know if I would do that. I can see why the Kings would want to get Poole. Mike Brown gets his guy. That's actually a really good fit with De'Aaron Fox. It makes a lot of sense for the Kings. I get a little concerned with the Warriors. And the other thing that you need to think about is the 4th pick is going to be really expensive still. It's not like you're saving a lot of money. This guy's going to be making $8 million year 2. So what's the difference if you're throwing $8 million to a guy that's not a for sure thing versus showing out a guy that is a for sure thing, but you're giving maybe $10, $12 million more? That's where I think the trade-off really comes in. And I'm a little concerned just because the 4th pick isn't cheap. That's my whole argument with Wiseman is the 2nd pick is not cheap. He's making $12 million year 3 now. So I imagine the 4th overall pick is going to be making $10 million year 3. And I don't know if I would give that for Keegan Murray. And I'd rather feel more comfortable giving Jordan Poole $22 million, the extra $12 million, because I know what I'm getting out of him. I know he fits into the system. I know what he's going to develop into. There's just a lot of mystery with these draft prospects. And I would actually value more Kuminga.
Oh, I love Kuminga. But what if Jaden Ivy's there at 4?
I think that would be solid because he could play Jordan Poole's role. He's a combo guard. He plays point guard and shooting guard. And then you would have an elite defender, hopefully. So I would like that. That's where I'm just saying I don't know what the Warriors' intentions in. If it's to get one of my guys in the top 5 on my board, I'm with it. But if it's to get Keegan Murray, I question it.
Hey, shout out to Slow TV Texas. This is one of your guys, D-Hack.
I appreciate Crusader Brothers for life. But that's
No
real
doubt.
love.
I got some Crusader blood running through me. A little bit.
2 years worth.
Hey, just 2 years worth of blood running through me. Let's see what else I got for you. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to go back to pulling up this. Okay, just say yes or no, because the show, we already hit over the hour mark. I usually try to keep them around an hour.
Sure.
But I want to ask you if you think these players are going to remain on the Warriors roster next year. Otto Porter. No, I'm going to say yes. I think Otto Porter comes back on the vet min. I mean, we rested him a ton this year. I think he's a good guy to have off the bench. So you say no, I say yes. Damian Lee.
Nope. I think he's going to get a contract somewhere.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, like a contract in Greece.
He's making $2 million.
Team in Greece.
No, he's
a
making
team in Turkey. A team in the Philippines. Where's he playing? Who's paying him?
I think he's going to get an offer from the Kings, a 3-year, $9 million deal, maybe a $12 million deal, because he shoots. He can play just the shooting guard off the bench. I think the Kings could offer him. I could see the Lakers offering him. They need shooting. And I think the thing with Damian Lee is that he's looking for a little bit more security in a longer term contract, a year or two. And just with the Warriors and how much money they're spending, who they're bringing in has to be 1-year deals. And that's why right now we're going through so many, is because there's so many 1-year deals that are expiring. Pretty much 6 of the guys are free agents because we've only been able to afford the vet minimum. So I think there's going to be teams out there that are going to be like, hey, you want a deal for 2 or 3 years? And these guys will take it, not that they want to, but it's just more job security. You'll get a little bit more money. I can see the 76ers offering him, and I can also see the Orlando Magic. They need shooting. So I can see them throwing some money his way. And that's the thing. I just don't know what they're going to say on the Warriors side of, like, do we keep these guys for $5 million a year, or do we get 2 guys for $2 million on these vet minimums?
Honestly, it sounds like you like Damian Lee more than I do. I'm not.
I don't
really
like
a Damian Lee guy.
I'm not.
I'll let him go. Some team wants to pay him more than the minimum. Godspeed to you. Congratulations, Damian. You deserve the money. You got some rings. I feel like he might stick around to be like the 14th or 15th man on this team, because just to keep it within the family. I think, his wife, obviously Steph Curry's sister, they all like being together. They got the family atmosphere. And Damian Lee, like, he's fine as like a 14th or 15th man, but I didn't want him getting playoff minutes. When we put him in, and he didn't get a ton of playoff minutes, but when he did get in the game, and it was mostly when Gary Payton was hurt, though, right? That was kind of the reasoning for it. But okay, let's keep it moving on the last few guys who I'm not sure if they're going to return. Next guy is, Andre Iguodala. Real quick, does he retire? Is he back? What do you think?
He comes back on the vet minimum, which would be great, or he's going to transition to coaching. I think he's going to just do the coaching on the vet minimum. So I think he stays around.
Oh, you're envisioning like a Udonis Haslem role for him.
Exactly. I don't think he's ready to give up the playing yet, but he's more of a coach than anything, and that's what his true value is. He's my come back on the vet minimum, just stay around, keep it within the family player. So I think he will stay unless he retires and wants to move to the front office. I think he's got a deal already set up with the front office. If he really wants it, it's up to him.
Okay, Gary Payton. We know how instrumental this guy was. He was one of the best defenders I've ever seen, Daniel. He makes other NBA players look like they can't dribble the ball.
Hey, he was the reason why I think we won this year's finals, because he was our second best big man at 6'3". He was in the dunker spot. He was getting blocks. And the cherry on top was that he was playing on ball and he could guard elite athlete guards. I think he's going to get the bag because everyone's like, wow, he can play defense, and we'd be willing to throw him that money.
Give me some fucking good news, D-Hack. Shit, you got Looney leaving. You got Gary Payton leaving. Come on, you're getting my blood boiling now.
I think there's 2 teams that will throw money at him. One would be Portland. Like I said, the same thing with Looney. Hurt the Warriors. He also played ball at Oregon State, so I see the overlap there. The other team that I think would be really interesting for him would be the Detroit Pistons, because they have money this year. I think, they need some help at the point guard role, and they're the type of team that needs some culture changers of a defender. So I see that could be a potential fit. But when I write these down, all I'm saying is more money. That I think that's just going to be the reason, and it's going to be a hard decision. I hope they can keep him, but I'm not cutting the checks, so I can't speak for that. I just know the numbers are racking up. So I think he might get the bag this year. He's going to get a few-year contract, and he deserves it. I hope the Warriors do enough to keep him, but I'm not going to be mad if he gets the bag somewhere else, because he deserves it.
I'm going to be mad. If he leaves, and I'm going to put that on Joe. Joe, thank you. First of all, I got to apologize to Joe Lacob, because when we traded Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut, I wasn't at the arena, but I remember I was in my front room yelling my head off because I was furious the Warriors traded Monte Ellis. And I can admit, I was wrong. It worked out. So, Joe, I apologize. But Joe, in the same light, you cannot let Gary Payton get away or Kevon Looney. Spend the money. I know it's expensive. I know it's multiplied. Get it done. We need these guys back at least for a year or two to end out the dynastic run. But okay, last couple guys. So you think Gary Payton's leaving? I'm thinking he's staying. Last two guys, Bjelica, Juan Toscano. And I know you're biased because my boy D-Hack is a Marquette alum. So he's got these special attachments to Juan Toscano. All year he was texting me, hey, we got to get Juan Toscano more minutes. Juan needs more minutes. But I want to hear, what do you think? Is JTA going to return? Nemanja Bjelica, what are you thinking?
I think Bjelica will return. The question is, do the Warriors want him to return? That's my question. I think Bjelica would love to stay around on the vet minimum. You know, he's done enough. He just wants the rings. He doesn't want to be on a bad team. He's been on enough bad teams in the NBA. The question is there enough roster spots at the end of the day to keep him around? So I think it's more, this is the one where I'm like, it's on the Warriors if they want to keep him. I think he wants to stay on the vet minimum. JTA, I think will want to stay, but this is another scenario where he just signed with Clutch Sports, I believe. So I imagine that he's going to get a contract somewhere from someone just because Clutch does not sign vet minimums. I just don't imagine Clutch being like, yeah, we're going to get you the least amount of money possible. So I could totally see him getting a contract somewhere, but I don't know if he would thrive outside the Warrior system because he's basically been in the Warrior system for 5 years now or so, dating back to Santa Cruz days. So I could see him leaving just because of what I just read today with him signing with Clutch. Clutch gets their players bags. And I don't think you would go above and beyond to sign him on this Warriors team and go into your bird rights. I would do that for other players like Gary Payton and Kevon Looney. Those are the priorities of going above and beyond for. So that's what I'm just thinking. If he didn't sign with Clutch, I'd be like, he might take the hometown discount, but Clutch don't make money. Clutch makes money. You know, that's what they're in the business for.
I know what you mean. I know. And you know what? I got to preface with what I'm about to say by saying I love JTA. I love Juan Toscano. You know, they almost were trying to play him in when Draymond was out with the injury. They were trying to give him like this Draymond role where because he can pass, he can facilitate, he plays pretty good defense. I think JTA is going to get the bag in Mexico. He's going to be maxed out in the Mexican League. All right.
He's already dominated Mexico. He was the MVP.
I'm screwing around.
I think he's going to get the bag somewhere else.
I don't think
the bag is going to come from some random NBA team.
I don't think he's an NBA player, D-Hack. I know you like him, and you had talked me into it, and he was definitely helpful. I would say more so last year as opposed to this year. I think he made a bigger imprint on me as a fan last year. This year, felt like the jumper last year I was seeing improvements with the jump shot, and I feel like it kind of took a step backward this year. JTA, I love him. I don't think he's going to return as a Warrior, but shout out to him, big ups, because it was always fun cheering for, I'm Bay Area baller, so it's like I'm biased to these Bay Area cats. So shout out JTA. You got any last thoughts on that?
The only thing I was going to say is that I think Weatherspoon is going to take a vet minimum to stay with this Warriors team if he gets out of the two-way contract. And I think he would be a good replacement for JTA or Damian Lee. That's kind of like one of those guys that's the 12th through 15th man, can make an impact. And I just think the Warriors value guys that understand their system. So that's what I envision, is that Weatherspoon maybe takes a bigger role and is on the day-to-day roster next year. He's good. He was a second-round pick. So that's something I'm just thinking in the back of my head. Is a potential replacement of a guy that's already on the roster that could fill in the void for any of these guys leaving if they get the bag somewhere else.
I like that. Yeah, Weatherspoon, we saw him. It's like every time I looked up his G League numbers, the dude was balling out of control for the Santa Cruz Warriors. And he came up like he looked pretty solid when he got his opportunities with the Warriors. And yeah, I don't. He is a candidate to take that job. I don't think a candidate would be my boy Justinian Jessup. I think that ship has sailed on my boy Justinian. But okay, let me tell you what Bob Myers is doing right now, D-Hack, because this Warriors front office doesn't stop trying to improve this team. Okay, and I'm thinking, hey, we're the NBA title champions. We might get some good vet minimums. Last year it felt like the good vet mins were going to like the Lakers or the
Clippers.
Heat, right? Yeah, like they were like, yeah, Batum's going. So now that the Warriors are champs, I feel like we're going to get some good veteran minimum players. And I got a couple. I'm wondering if you got a name or two that you think is going to be cheap on the free agent market, maybe veterans looking for a ring, some ring chasers. You got anyone in mind?
I got a couple people. And it's so hard because I'm just looking at players that are a little bit older or unrestricted free agent this year.
We're projecting.
Yeah, it could totally change in a month.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Rudy Gay has been a name that's been thrown around so many times. I could see him being a replacement for Otto Porter if Otto Porter's still young. So that's why I think like a team will really value him. Rudy Gay's a name. Terence Ross is a name that I feel like he's at a point where he's like, I'm tired of playing with teams that aren't doing anything. And could be valuable for the Warriors as a wing 3-and-D player. So I like that. And the last guy, younger, but has been in kind of weird situations where I don't think he's going to get a big contract. He played on the Suns. He played on the Thunder when the Suns weren't that great, is Kendrick Williams. I like him as kind of like a big that's really not a big, but could play big man minutes.
Wait, say his name again. I'm sorry, I missed the name.
Kendrick Williams. He's like 6'8". He's kind of like a big man, but he plays 3-and-D-ish. He's on the Thunder right now, but he started his career as an undrafted, I think, free agent with the Suns before the Suns got Chris Paul and kind of turned things around. So those are my. I
got two names for you. Okay, I like that. And the Rudy Gay one. Yeah, you're right, because it feels like the Warriors have been kind of trying to get him on the squad for a couple of years now. You've heard
right.
The Warriors linked to Rudy Gay. Joe Ingles. I'm a big Joe Ingles guy. We know he was with the Jazz. It felt like forever. I believe he's coming off an ACL, right? Yeah. I think he tore it like mid-season, but that's why I think he's going to be dirt cheap, D-Hack. And Joe Ingles, I mean, I got to look it up. Joe Ingles is a sniper. I mean, what's his career three-point percentage? Because this guy, it feels like he's always knocking down open shots. He just feels like a Warriors kind of player. Like he can pass it. I mean, he's averaged 3 or 4 assists a game, and okay, I got his 3-point percentage right here. He's shooting over 40% from his career, D-Hack. The guy shot 45% in 2020. He shot 40. The guy's a sniper, and that's one I know it might not. You'd have to wait. You'd have to be patient because towards ACL, he's going to be out. Hopefully, he comes back maybe mid-season. But Joe Ingles, what do you think about that? Any shot there, or am I out of my mind?
I like Joe Ingles. I think, to your point, the injury at his age, I just don't know if it's worth having him on the roster day one if he's not going to come back for a while. But I like that as like a second unit scorer, playmaker. I like that a lot. I don't know what his priorities are, but if it's playing for a championship contender, this would be the place to go. But I could also see him being, I really want to play a lot because he was a big contributor on Utah before he got traded to Portland. So I don't know if he really wants the championship or if he's looking for the minutes, because I don't think he's going to get the minutes if he's coming back from an injury. I don't think the Warriors are going to give him much leeway to get a lot of playing time.
That's possible. And I got one last name for you. It was a guy I was clamoring for the Warriors to go out and trade for last year. Me and you had a bunch of conversations about it. You're like, nah, dude, this guy, he loves Disney World. He loves Disney. And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. The guy loves Disney World. That's why he's not going to come win a championship with the Warriors. But it's Robin Lopez. I feel like the Warriors need another big. You know, I'm hoping Looney comes back. You're scaring me saying Looney's going to get a bag elsewhere. But if Looney's gone, all we got is Wiseman. And trust me, I'm a big Wiseman guy. I'm the guy who bought the Wiseman jersey the day after we drafted him. Okay? And it's like when I wear it, I'm like, are people laughing at me when I'm walking around wearing this Wiseman jersey? But I feel like we need another veteran big. And I think Robin Lopez is that guy. Like, he's smart. He can rebound. He can set good screens. You know, he's not a deficient passer. It just seems like a solid fit. I mean, maybe a JaVale McGee reunion was another guy who kind of popped in when I was looking at the free agents who potentially could be cheap. I mean, any shot on those two?
I would be interested in JaVale because JaVale could start. And I think that's what we're trying to find as a spot starter with our big. Robin Lopez, I know you bring him up all the time. I just don't know how valuable of a roster spot he would be in the Warriors because the Warriors proved you really don't need a big man to win a championship. I think that's the crazy thing is they didn't have anyone over 6'10" wins.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that for a sec, okay? We didn't, like, when we played the Nuggets and the Joker, it was Jamal Murray's out, you know, Michael Porter Jr.'s out. Like, so they weren't up to par. They weren't up to task with the roster. But if they had their whole team, I feel like I can make the argument that we could use another 7-footer to throw on. And then the other one is we didn't play the Phoenix Suns, who have DeAndre Ayton, you know, where you would want Robin Lopez potentially in a playoff scenario is when you're going up against one of these big, rugged 7-footers that it's like you're not sure Draymond's going to – what if we end up playing like a Joel Embiid in a finals, you know? Like, that's not a good matchup for Draymond playing the 5, you know? So that's where I want this veteran big. Like, that's where I think it could be useful.
And I like JaVale as being that veteran big. I just don't know if Robin Lopez is like. Would you rather have Joel? Would you rather have Joel Embiid being guarded by Robin Lopez, or take our chances with Draymond Green and an undersized Jonathan Kuminga? At that point, it's like, what are we really trying to get here? The only reason I'm not huge on Robin Lopez is just because he doesn't do much else outside of being big. He's not spreading the court. He can get rebounds and he can play, some post defense, but I just don't know if that would fit in the Warriors
coverage,
system.
right? We don't want to play our switching style of defense with Robin Lopez on the court. You'd have to go to drop coverage. There'd be some things to iron out, but I think we could use another big man, like legitimate veteran big. Who knows? Maybe we go the draft route and they bring in another guy, like some of the guys you talked about earlier in the video. But hey, D-Hack, this ran a little longer than I was expecting. But hey, I'm glad I got you on because not only are you one of my best friends, but you just know the NBA like the back of your hand. So I'm glad I got to talk to you. And I know we're going to be talking off the side, and we got to do this again.
Yeah, we'll see what happens later this week, see what we do. I think that's going to open up maybe a little bit more insight into what the Warriors are going to do. So we got some time until that 28th pick. We don't have it like we used to where we get an answer within the first 5 picks, like when we were bad. So we'll have some time to wait on Thursday.
Yeah, D-Hack, I'm going to end this with a 30-second rant. I'm going to kick you out of here, but you're going to want to watch this rant that I'm about to do because I'm talking directly to Bob Myers. But hey, D-Hack, thanks for coming on. I had a blast, and I know I'm going to talk to you soon.
Always, bro.
Bob Myers, I got to talk to you. Hey, you've done a great job building this roster, okay? 4 championships, phenomenal. All right. We got the 28th pick coming up on Thursday in this draft. All right. But there's a EuroLeague MVP that wants to get out of Oklahoma City. All right. Vasilija Micic is the back-to-back EuroLeague champion. Okay. And for those of you who don't know, the EuroLeague, it's the second best league in the world behind the NBA. Okay. And Micic, he was the EuroLeague MVP. He just led his team to back-to-back championships. And Oklahoma City owns his rights. Okay. But his camp has came out and said, like, hey, we're ready to come to the NBA. But it ain't going to be for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they're looking for a trade. Bob, offer the 28th pick. I'm telling you. This guy, he's a veteran point guard. He's a combo guard. All right? Go out, get this guy, because pairing him, I mean, you're talking about a backcourt of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, Vasilija Micic, and then if you can bring back Gary Payton, those are 5 guards. Your guards are set. You don't need nothing else. All right? So, Bob, Joe Lacob, if you're watching this, Peter Goober, I don't care who it is, upper management, anyone. Draymond, if you're watching this, tell Bob they got to go out and trade for Vasilija Micic. All right? Hey, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Shout out to my boy D-Hack for coming by. That guy's, he knows his stuff, man. And we'll be back soon. Probably next time will be some Niners talk. But, hey, thanks for coming.